Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel, now fully revitalized and rebranded as the Silverlight Sage. I thought the name The Cosmere Opinion was boring from the start and unoriginal, but I wasn't creative but when I first created the channel. But now I've got, I think I like this name. Let's think about changing the profile picture to something cool. But anyways, I'll stop messing with the mouse. It's been a while since I posted a video, and despite my claims on the contrary in the last video, like a year ago, where I said I was going to make content other than tier lists, which I still hope to do, but for now I thought it would be a nice easy parlay back into making a video here and there to revisit my Cosmere books tier list. I've also finished reading a lot of the books and novellas that I had not read at the time of making the first one. Looking back at the list, it was really rather incomplete. But now I've read everything except I still have to mention White Sand. I didn't want to read the prose version, and they're impossible to get their hands on. But I did back the Omnibus Project, which to my understanding is a single volume of all three. It's completely revitalized, is that the word, or redone, remastered? That's the word I'm looking for. So I will be getting that hopefully whenever they ship out, and we'll finally be able to read White Sand. But other than that, I have read now everything on this list here, and as you may also notice if you did watch that video a year ago and remember it, I have added a lot more items to the list that weren't there previously. So I added basically every novella and short story I could think of within the Cosmere, and mainly all the ones that were inside the Arcanum Unbounded that I hadn't put, that I just lumped into the Arcanum Unbounding one ranking altogether, which I didn't think is fair looking back at it. I don't know why I did it that way. But anyways, that's enough preamble out of the way. I'm just going to get back into the video, and start ranking some stuff. So starting with The Way of Kings, again, like last time, the Stormlight Archive is just, I think my favorite in the entire Cosmere. It's what I started with, The Way of Kings, with the Stormlight Archive, and it's what hooked me into this beautiful world that Brandon has built. And The Way of Kings is a perfect slow burn and beginning into the series. Like I said, it is very slow at the start, a lot of character and world building, but I absolutely love it. It's one of the best books I've ever read, one of the best first books I've ever read, and I don't really have any negatives to it other than the fact that the pacing can be slow at times, but I think it's worth it 110%, especially with the climax. Next, we'll go to Words of Radiance, which last time was my favorite book in the Cosmere, and as of right now, that has not changed. If The Way of Kings is the perfect starter to a series, then the Words of Radiance, I hope I said that right. If The Way of Kings is the perfect starter to a series, then the Words of Radiance is the perfect sequel. It's got everything from the first book, but with a faster pace, elevated some of the best action I think I might have ever read, and it's absolutely wonderful. Again, for either of these books, I don't really have any criticisms at all, again, except for maybe some pacing issues, but really not that's really, I wouldn't even call them issues in these books. Where I think the pacing was an issue, which I mentioned last time, was Oathbringer. Again, Oathbringer's great, I love it, I'm putting it in A tier. It's not at all a bad book. It's still, I guess I should have clarified this before, but a D tier in terms of the Cosmere standards is still a really good book. I don't think there is a bad book in the Cosmere. This is just what I think is better than others, what I like more than others. They're still all wonderful. I should preface that. So if I put your favorite book in D tier or favorite novella in D tier, just know that I still love it, still think it's great. So an A for Oathbringer and the Stormlight Archive, I still think it's a fantastic book, better than most books I read normally. But the pacing had issues, I would say. The middle chunk of this book, and it's each entry in the Stormlight Archive is longer than the last, if I'm correct. But so to the point when this book came out, it was the longest one so far, and the chunk in the middle was just so slow. There was just so much. It just dragged its feet. What I will say, and if you don't know anything about these books, I should just real quickly, each book follows a different character's flashbacks, and kind of from their main POV. There's multiple POVs within the book, but each book has a central focus through flashbacks on a character. And although I think this book has the worst pacing, it is my least favorite of the Stormlight Archive. I think its flashback narrative following Dalinar might be the greatest in all of them. Throughout all of the Stormlight Archive, Dalinar's backstory is gripping. It's amazing. It's nuanced, and I wasn't sold on the character of Dalinar. I didn't love him very much in The Way of Kings. I didn't find him that interesting. I warmed up to him in Words of Radiance, but Oathbringer is the book that really made me fall in love with Dalinar. Dalinar is an excellent character. His backstory is phenomenal in this book, and it really is, in some ways, what gets you through those middle parts where the current plot is a little slow. You know, you get to his flashback character, and you just, get all pumped up for some more Blackthorn. But all right, moving on to Rhythm of War. I have still yet to reread this since it first came out. I've read all of these twice. So for me, it's the most recent Stormlight Archive book I've read. I'm planning a reread soon, but I want to reread Mistborn Era 2 for the Lost Metal first. So I hope to get to it soon. But last time I think I put it above Way of Kings and behind Words of Radiance. And I said that the hype on it was huge because I had just read it. It had just came out. And on pure feeling, I think it's a better book than Words of Radiance, but I don't want to put it that high because I've only read it once. Now, I still feel the same. I wish I had reread it, but this book is still great. I think the flashbacks suffer a bit. So for all the praise, we're giving Oathbringer for its great flashbacks and some issues with current plot pacing, I think the current plot in Rhythm of War is phenomenal, on par with Words of Radiance, but the flashbacks suffer. And again, without getting into too much, I try to avoid spoilers in general. Odds are, if you're watching this video, you've read at least some of these works, but I want everyone to experience this for themselves. So, but the flashbacks follow these characters called this character called Venli and Eshonai, and her backstory, and they are a different race from the main humanoid, like basically humans. They're a different race, and a large part of their cultural history and cultural world building was meant to be in these flashbacks, but ended up getting brought forward into Words of Radiance. I believe Brandon has talked about this, but he basically wanted to hold back until their flashback characters to give the culture depth, but he found that the story wasn't complete in the earlier books. So a lot of the flashbacks, that information that would have been in the flashbacks, ended up in this book, and the flashbacks really suffer for it. It feels like a retread in a lot of instances, and excuse me while I catch my breath. Take a sip of water. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've done this. If you can't tell, it feels like a bit of a retread, and not vital, not interesting in a lot of senses. And I think the book as a whole kind of suffers for it. So I'm still going to put it in S tier. I still enjoyed it more, hold it in higher regard than Oathbringer. The climax, the current plot is phenomenal. When I say current plot, I mean in the current timeline happening in the present, I guess. It's phenomenal. But yeah, the flashbacks, I think I'm actually going to put it behind Way of Kings, because although the action and the pacing is a lot faster than Way of Kings, I think Way of Kings is still a perfect book, while this book has more noticeable flaws, and I'm a year and some odd months since I've read it, so now I'm not as wrapped up in the hype. Moving on to Edge Dancer. Edge Dancer... So last time I think I threw it in the B tier, but I didn't have a D tier. So C was like the D. I think I'm going to put this in a C tier. Edge Dancer is a fine story. It's a really fine, fun, entertaining novella. It follows one of the, at the time of Oathbringer, a newer, more recently introduced character. It takes place in between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer in terms of the timeline. And so at that time, she was just introduced. Lift was just introduced in Words of Radiance, sorry. And I don't love Lift. I don't dislike her. She's got the kind of Lopen, Wayne, comedic, witty, or not witty, but snarky, I guess, kind of personality. And I think sometimes they work. I love Wayne in Mistborn Era 2. I enjoy Lopen a lot more than a lot of his haters, and wouldn't say I love him as much as a character like Wayne. Lift for me is a similar archetype type of character, this comedic kind of, they got their quirks and they're snarky, and it doesn't really work for me as much. I don't really enjoy reading Lift as much. I still think it's a good story, and it's got a lot of interesting world building ramifications, so I do recommend you read it, because especially for certain character developments and arcs later on, it's slightly important, but I don't enjoy it very much. Now, Dawnshard is the other Stormlight novella that takes place in between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, and follows a interlude character, Risen, that is present in an interlude or two every single book, but has never really had her own moment in the spotlight, really, until this novella rather. It follows her and then some of the other characters we know as they go on an adventure. I don't want to say much more than that. And I really like it. I think I think I put these two in the same tier last time, with Edge Dancer slightly behind. But I really like Dawnshard. I think it's got great, interesting Cosmere mechanics importance to it. It's got a lot of cool revelations. And I really like the characters. I really like the story. I found it's very fun and enjoyable. And for a novella, it does everything it's supposed to do. You can't really compare. It's hard to compare these like novellas like this that are, I don't know, 200 some odd pages to 1,200 page epic fantasy novels. But it's good. It's enjoyable. Definitely worth the read. All right, so now we're gonna move on to Mistborn, Final Empire, or just Mistborn. I still think I'm gonna put it in S tier. Last time I did this ranking, I had just finished Mistborn and had not read any of the rest of the Mistborn, so Rest of Era 1, Rest of Era 2. Again, really incomplete list. I think I just wanted to make a video, and this was an easy thing to do. But I don't want this video to be an hour. I should really speed some of these up. But I like to give my analysis, so I hope you guys don't mind if you guys are still watching, sitting for a long video. But I really like this book. I think it's a great start to a series like Way of Kings. I don't connect with the characters as strongly. I mean, and that's just me. I don't think they're poorly written. I don't necessarily agree with the criticism that it's too YA-ish. It's definitely got some young adult YA vibes or qualities, but I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a great book. I think if I had to say any reason why it just doesn't quite match the Stormlight Archive for me in terms of the characters, even though they're excellent, and still really Vin is a great protagonist. Vin is the protagonist. She's a great protagonist, and the band, the Kelsier crew, whatever you want to call them, they're great. They're fun. I just don't think there's nearly as much depth. It's hard to compete with multiple POV characters. It's hard to give them all depth when you only have them through the eyes of basically one and occasionally a second POV character, right? So yeah, I think that S is still appropriate, though. It's a great book. It's very fun and good world building. Great. Again, Brandon, I haven't even talked about the magic systems. The magic systems in both of these worlds are amazing. I think the magic system in basically every world is fabulous. But I love the allomancy and its nuances, and you get to hemalurgy and ferrukami, in later books. And I think that, again, the Mistborn's magic systems are excellent. They're entertaining and really, really, again, nuanced, intricate, tight. Again, I really like Brandon's what are they? Closed magic systems? Is that the phrase? There's the two types of magic systems, though. I think it's open and closed or something like that. Where you think of like Tolkien as an open fantasy. Anyways, getting a little sidetracked. This video is long enough already. And I'm only not even a third of the way through. All right, Well of Ascension, the second book. I think Well of Ascension, oh man, I don't want to really upset the Mistborn fans, but I actually don't really like Well of Ascension that much. I think it's a fine book. I think it's good. I enjoyed it, but to me it was the weak point in the series, and I don't know. I thought that the lows in this book emotionally were not fun to read at times, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Again, going a little bit, not really into spoilers, but just some general characterization of Vin. She has a lot of young teenage angst, and I don't know if depression's the right word, but like antisocial. She's antisocial, not anti Bernie Sanders. But she's antisocial. She's sorry, I make myself laugh. She's not. She's antisocial. She is mistrustful of everyone, and that's a part of her characterization, and it creates the groundwork for her growth and throughout the series. Without, again, I don't want to go too much into it, but she has an arc and growth, and it's very relevant to that. But I think in this book, I felt constantly like we have to be past this, right? Like, you're still here, you're still, and then there's this whole kind of side plot with another Alamancer that she gets involved with. I didn't really enjoy his character very much, and I don't know. This book just wasn't 100% for me. I didn't love it as much as the others. Heroes of Ages, I think, is a great book. Great climax. I hesitate to put it in S tier just because if I really gush about everything, I'm going to put everything in S tier. I think an A is adequate, better than Oathbringer. So there you go. Mistborn beats out a book of the Stormlight Archive for you, or actually two Mistborn books beat out Oathbringer. So for the Mistborn fans, I throw in some bones your way. Stormlight Archive represents still, but I think the Heroes Ages is great. I think it's got a wonderful climax. It's not. I'm being careful with spoilers here, trying to word what I want to say. Let's just say it's got a satisfying, not. Yeah, I know what I'm not going to say what I'm thinking. I'm just going to let it go. It's got a really satisfying, great conclusion. I didn't necessarily see everything coming, and it was wonderful. I also want to point out that the Mistborn series for me, so when I read Stormlight Archive first, and then I read Elantris, and then I read Warbreaker. And then I reread the Stormlight Archive in preparation for Rhythm of War. So that was where I was when I made the first tier list. I had just started reading Mistborn after Rhythm of War, and I had heard about shards. I had watched about what the concept of shards, but I had they had all been through outside Words of Brandon and people. None of it was in the text. And I was very confused because I had watched some videos by a YouTube channel called The 17th Shard. Got a great video, discussions, theories on all of the Cosmere. Much more informed, and they got a great panel. So great channel. But I've watched a lot of their stuff, and they talk about the deep, in-depth mechanics and lore of this world. And I was always feeling like, okay, where is this in the books? And Hero of Ages and Secret History, which we'll get to when I get out of the novels and into the Mistborn right here, the Mistborn novellas, they really start to shed some light on the larger Cosmere aspects of these series. And I really enjoyed that in Hero of Ages, kind of learning about some mechanics. And again, Era 2, I think Mistborn in general has the most shard-centered, at least as of now. I think the Stormlight Archive is going to go, with Rhythm of War also had a lot of it kind of coming in. But I think that Mistborn in general has some of the most shard centered information within the text. And I enjoyed reading about that, finally getting some, actual empirical evidence from the books and learning about it and seeing it on the page and finally kind of coming to understand a little bit about what's going on with the larger Cosmere. But yeah, Era 1, really, really solid. Again, for me, it doesn't live up to Stormlight Archive, but it's probably still my, second favorite series. I mean, there's only, I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't say that because Era 2 is a separate series, and I don't know which I like more. But moving on to Era 2, I'll start with the Alloy of Law and throw it into B. I think Alloy of Law is fine. I really do like the characters of Wax and Wayne. But if you don't know anything about Brandon's writing process for this Mistborn Era 2, if I'm correct, he was planning on just writing Alloy of Law as kind of a short novella during this time period, and then he was going to Mistborn Era 3, now, what we think of as Mistborn Era 3, as Mistborn Era 2. So this wasn't even supposed to be a full era. It was supposed to be a novella or one book. And I think a little bit of the plot, it's a good plot, it's a good story, really great characters. The progression of the technology from Era 1 to Era 2 is great. the difference, like variation in like the power levels, and now instead of having like these pure powerful Allomancers, or Mistborns rather, it's not as common to have Mistborns like that. But what we do see a ton of that isn't in Era 1 is compounding, having an allomantic and ferochemical ability, and that was really cool in this book. Again, just more. And then with Bands of Mourning, we get into even more interesting things with the world of Scadrial. That's the planet or world that Mistborn takes place on. But I think Alloy of Law, although those things were really cool in the book, I think to me you could tell that it didn't have the planning in the writing. Again, if I'm wrong about this point, I'm just gonna look like an idiot. But I'm pretty sure it was not his intention. It was in kind of as he was writing or after the fact kind of thing. And probably as he was writing the first book, he kind of made the decision, I would think. But I don't know. It just didn't have any really good emotional hits for me, really. And it wasn't bad. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. But it, again, of the books I've ranked, of the full novels I've ranked so far, it's probably my least favorite and the weakest. Now, elevating Era 2 massively is Shadows of Self. And hot take, I don't know. Am I going to put it above Rhythm of War? I don't think so. I'd have to read Rhythm of War again if I really want to put something above it. But I think it's the best Mistborn book. Era 1, Era 2, I think Shadows of Self is phenomenal. And I don't know if it's controversial or not. I know the debate between Era 1 and Era 2 is there. For me, it's really close because I think 2 of the 3 books are excellent in both series, and one doesn't. I got those 2 books in the B tier. And I don't know. I think Shadows of Self is better than Mistborn Era 1's best. So I don't know. They're both very good. But Shadows of Self is an amazing book. Again, it's got all the cool new compounding that I talked about from Alloy of Law, but it's got an insanely, in my mind at least, more gripping plot and story beat. And in my mind, one of the most emotional arcs in all of the Cosmere takes place in this book without saying too much. I think, again, I don't want to say too much, but I think it is one of the most emotional, like mind blown, like oh my goodness, like revelations or plot moments. Or I don't know how you plot arcs, I guess, character arcs. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here, because I don't want to spoil too much. But I think it's phenomenal, and if you read the book, I think you'll probably know what I'm talking about when you get to it. It was great. It was heart wrenching, but I love that in books. So if you make me feel emotions, that's the best thing a book can do for me. All right, and moving on to Bands of Mourning. See, this is why they're so close, because Bands of Mourning is good, really good. For some reason, my mind has not embedded a lot of the plot like beats. Like I have gaps in Bands of Mourning that I don't have in the other Era 2 books. I don't know why. I just think a lot happens in Era 2. We learn a lot of stuff develops. Again, we get more of that like shardic information in Bands of Mourning. And I think that it's really, really good, really, really solid. One particular relationship in this book becomes really, really endearing, and one of my favorite relationships in the series, and I'm really excited to see it develop further in Lost Metal. It got me really excited for Lost Metal. Again, I'm going to reread these books soon. I just finished a read of A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time, kind of trying to broaden my fantasy lens. Again, I really enjoyed it, but that's not for this channel, at least at the moment. I don't know, I might expand it to broader fantasy if it tickles my fancy. But yeah, anyways, I plan to reread it at some point, hopefully fill in those gaps. But it's a great book. I don't know what else to say. It's got all the same ups as the other 2 books, but didn't have the same emotional moments that for me as Shadows of Self did. It's still really good, really enjoyable. Not much else to say. All right, Warbreaker. Yes, if you can tell, this is going to be a top-heavy list. I love all these books, but Warbreaker is still an A for me. Warbreaker is got, in my mind, one of the most creative magic systems, or most, I think creative's a good word for it, inventive even. But it's got a great magic system. It's got a fun plot, really, really colorful pun. I didn't mean it as a pun, but literally colorful, world, and also, figuratively colorful world. It's deep, it's interesting, the characters are fun and good, well written. Again, there are some versions of, I would say, tropes in this book that are really good, that I really enjoyed. A couple, again, I can't name what tropes without spoiling the story. I've thought about doing books on some of the tropes in these stories, though, if a video rather on some of the tropes in these books, but I don't really know how to edit, and that's why tier making is so easy, because I don't have to worry about what's in the background. But a video of me just talking, I don't really want to have my face on camera. I don't really have a good setting for that, so I really want to make some actual content that's more intellectually driven than this. I mean, if my channel is going to be the Silverlight Sage, I should actually have some Sage videos, no? But for now, this is what I have. And I think this book, anyways, back to tropes. This is why my videos end up being an hour long. I go on such tangents. But the good subversions of tropes, great characters. I think the character of Lightsong might be one of my most underrated favorite characters. He's great. He's a lot of fun to read. Good POV. Yeah, don't have much else to say. Elantris. So Elantris, I think for me, that's interesting. I'm looking at, so I have a photo of my last ranking just to comparison sake, and I put it below Edge Dancer, or I put it in at least the same tier as Edge Dancer. And I understand why I did that, but looking at this list now, I feel like it has to be up here. Elantris was the first novel Brandon ever published, and it shows some of the characters can be a little more flat. The plot, actually, I think the plot's fine, but the characters can be a little flat. His just writing skills weren't as refined as they are now. Again, he's never been one for really flowery prose. I still think his prose is good. A lot of people say his prose is garbage. I think he's got good prose, but he's got matter of fact to the point. Those are two synonyms. Jacob. Oh, name drop. Yes, my name is Jacob. I don't know if I've ever said that on the channel, but there you go. Yeah, I think his prose, especially in this book, is a little weak, though. Again, his prose in general tends to be to the point, and again, a little simplistic, not in a negative way, but yeah. So I think this book has some of those elements that hold it back, just of being an early novel. At the same time, though, the premise, I think Elantris is one of the most fascinating premises with, again, I don't find this a spoiler, it's the general premise of the book. It's like the first or second chapter we start to learn about the Hoed and all that stuff. It's spelled Hoed, I think Hoed. I think it's supposed to be Hoed. And the Riod, I don't know, it's been a little while. The words in Riod, the words and pronunciations in that book are weird. But basically the city of zombie-like people that are taken by a disease that leaves them in an everlasting stasis. And, for example, to explain that if you haven't read it, any injury or pain you sustain is now a constant pain for the rest of your existence. You hit your arm on the table, that little dull throb is there forever. And there's no relief, and that's, again, you can see how that becomes a madness for many people, and constantly living in agony and pain and suffering, and and that exploring Elantris and all of that, I found really interesting, really, really fun concept. But again, the characters and a lot of the side characters are a little flat. It's held back, but I don't think it's on the level. I think I enjoy it more than Edge Dancer, and maybe even Howl of Law. See, because I don't know. Yeah, it's tough for me. I don't know why I ranked it so. I ranked it down here last time, but anyways, now we're through all the main novels that I've read. Again, not the graphic novels, White Sand. I haven't read them yet. I will when I get the omnibus edition. But anyways, now last time I ranked the Arcanum Unbounded as my lowest book. I don't think the way I ranked it was fair, because I took in the culmination of all of these novellas, including Edge Dancer, by the way. All of these novellas or short stories plus Edge Dancer, and then some a little more original content, are all in the Arcanum Unbounded. So I think there are two ways of looking at this and how I'm going to do it for this tier ranking. In terms of just monetary sense, if you like physical editions, it makes a ton of sense to buy this book. If you then you, I have my own copy of Edge Dancer, but I don't have. You can buy hardcovers of Emperor's Soul, of Secret History, and if that's your thing, if that's what you want, the cover arts for some of them are great. But for me, I bought the Arkham Unbound, and I have all of them now. I think it makes a ton of sense. If you like the Cosmere, if you really want to get into it, there are some amazing stories in here. So you know what, S tier, you should buy this book and read it. But that's not how I'm going to rank it, because I don't think it's fair. I'm going to still rank it on its own unique content. So basically, it's got some background information on the world's systems and planet systems throughout the Cosmere, written by this world hopping scholar, Chris, in her hand. She, it's kind of like reading a science textbook about the planets of the Cosmere, and that's really it. And so some planet charts too. They can show you the actual physical, existence of the planets in the solar systems. But that's really it. And again, which is why I think on its unique content alone, I'm still going to put it down here. It's interesting, but from a reading perspective, it's not like anything. It's like a little lore pamphlets, and that's fine. Those are good. I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad to have that information. But in terms of that, it's not that. It's not really even a novel. You know what I mean? It's an. Wait, is that what an arcanum is? I was gonna say like an encyclopedia or, a collection. Is that what an arcanum is? I think like a collection of stories. That might be, So maybe that's obviously supposed to be obvious in the title. But anyways, I don't. It can't really live up to the same standards. It's still good and definitely worth the purchase for having all of these stories up to Shadows of Self as well. So, and some of these are excellent. That's another reason why I don't like how I ranked Arkham Unbounded, because I put stories like Almancer Jack on the same level as stories like Emperor's Soul by lumping them all together, and I do not think that's fair. But anyways, let's get to the two Mistborn novellas, or short. One's a novella, one's a short story. That I believe I got all of them. I think I'm trying. I did it from memory. I don't have my copy with me here at college or university, so I hope I didn't forget anything. But let's start with Mistborn Secret History. It's really good. It's really interesting. It's a lot of fun to read. It's one of those books that kind of has minor spoilers from Bands of Mourning, but definitely can't be read before Heroes of Ages. I can't really talk about who or what it's about without kind of spoiling everything, because it's quite literally a secret history, as the name would suggest. So even talking about anything from it, but it's really worth the read. I don't know why. I think I am gonna put it in the B tier. Yeah, I don't think I can put it up with A, but I'm gonna put it right between Elantris and Alloy of Law. I'll put it above Elantris. Yeah, let's put it there. I think it's really good. It's kind of a necessary read. Again, I read it before Bands of Mourning because I kind of already knew the Bands of Mourning twist that had an accident, like not twist, but the minor thing that this spoils in Bands of Mourning, I already kind of had spoiled for me. So I read it right after Heroes of Ages. I thought it flowed really well. It kind of takes place. The plot timeline takes place kind of at the same time as that's not Heroes of Ages, as Heroes of Ages is going on. So I thought it made sense there. But again, if you really are like a purist, like publication order follower, I believe it came out, I think it came out after Bands of Mourning, and does have technically a minor spoiler for that. Next to 11th Metal. 11th Metal is a short story kind of. I like it in that it kind of shows Ruin's influence in Era 1 from the start in Kelsier's life. I hope I don't think that's too big of a spoiler. I'm sorry if that is. But other than that, I don't know. It's not. It's all right. It's a short story. It's kind of like cool little nod, but I didn't really find it to be that engaging. Now moving on to Almancer Jack. And the Pits of Altania, which is a little short story, kind of like, it's kind of written in like a adventure diary from I don't know. I'm really struggling with the concept of explaining this, but essentially Almancer Jack is this like Alamance Allomantic explorer who goes on all these great adventures and has a following during Era 2 that he writes to, and he's kind of like this cheesy, over exaggerating, like kind of charlatan. No, I don't want to say charlatan because he really is like going on these explorations, but he always talks himself up and over emphasizes or over dramatizes drama over dramatic keys. That's not a word, obviously, but I've given up on trying. He's over the top and definitely stretches the truth, and he's an interesting character, but the actual story itself is not that interesting. There's actually a little like newspaper article in Alloy of Law that is another one like different from the Pits of Altania. It's just another little like short newspaper article like, oh, on my most recent adventure, blah blah. And I think it gets like cut off in the middle, but it's like a little like continuation of that, like showing this is a real person in the world, but it really has no relevance on anything if I remember correctly. I can't even remember the thing he like finds on his adventure and if it's important, but I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think it was very good. Like I almost want to put it on a tier below this because of like but I don't want to rework the whole tier list, so I'm just gonna put it at the very bottom. I think it's not worth reading really. So despite the fact that other than Secret History, everything I've ranked the short stories in Arcanum Unbounded are at the D tier, you may be thinking, you said Arcanum Unbounded is absolutely worth the purchase. It doesn't look like that right now. Well, Emperor's Soul makes up for that 110%. I don't want to put it above any of the novels because I don't know. It's just hard for me to do that. I feel like Mistborn fans would kill me if I did this, and I don't think it's how I feel anyways. So I'm gonna put it there. But it is S tier. It is the best novella Brandon has ever written. It is phenomenal. It follows this character Shy, who is on Cell, which is the planet Elantris takes place in. It's the world of Elantris, but in a completely different region with a completely different magic system than the Elantrian magic system. And it's completely like a one-off like little story, really, really well contained. It actually has two unique magic systems if I think about it. There's hers, and then there's the Blood Sealer. Is that what the word was? Anyways, really interesting. Again, the world of Cell has like a ton of magic systems, and we don't see very many of them. We really only see 1.5 in Elantris, and it's all we've got really of Elantris are these two books. And maybe we want so much more because it's such an interesting, rich world with really interesting, cool magic systems. And I think it is going to be important down in the timeline when we have the big Stormlight and Mistborn, and I think it's one of those, if Brandon's like main 3 Cosmere players, I think Elantris was in there. Sorry to the Nalthus Warbreaker fans. But Emperor's Soul is phenomenal. It's got great characterization. Shy is a wonderfully like interesting character. Again, she's a forger, which is this new magic system, and we learn a lot about forgery through her, and it's really, really interesting, really intricate. You get a ton of characterization through her and through her like profession. Like it's clearly a part of her, and we learn a lot about the magic through her and a lot about her through the magic, and it's really great. Again, really well self-contained story, and I absolutely love this this novella. It's phenomenal. I think if you just like the Cosmere and like his types of worlds, again, it doesn't really connect to anything else in the Cosmere. It's completely self-contained, but it's absolutely worth the read. Moving on to The Hope of Elantris. This story, I think, was inspired by a fan interaction Brandon had. Again, I read like all of this a bit of a while ago, and I think before the story he talked about a fan interaction he had, and the character that this follows very briefly actually is inspired by a real person. I'm going to put it right in between these two because it's a cute story. It kind of is like a flashback of like while the climax of Elantris was happening, here's what was happening with another character. And it's interesting. It's really short, really brief. It's a short story. It's not not even close to even a novella. So I don't feel too bad putting it down here. I think it's fine. But it really doesn't add much. It's more of a little, I don't want to say fanfic because it's canon, but it feels like almost this fanfic little like love letter to this fan interaction he had, and I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. I love that Brandon is so active in his community, and if by some miracle that the person, I'm sorry I don't remember your name, actually watches this video, it's not anything against you or the story that you inspired, or the interaction you had that kind of inspired the story, but yeah, it doesn't It's not anything special, outside of that. Moving on to Six of the Dusk. This is another self-contained novella. It's getting hard for me to rank these novellas because they're so different, and this takes place on First of the Sun, which is a planet in the Threnody system. Yeah. See, like, again, this is all stuff you'll learn in the Arcanum Unbound about the different systems and stuff. It takes place in the Threnody system, which we haven't seen anything else from the Threnody system. It's very unique. I'm placing it here temporarily. I might think about it more, but it's got this unique system, and it's also the most futuristic, like furthest down the timeline, I think, in terms of what's going on in the Cosmere. Like, it takes place way after the events of the Stormlight Archive. Like, it's pretty far down the line. It's really interesting. It's a little foreboding. I have not read the preview to the Six of the Dust sequel. I don't remember what it was called, but I think Brandon did like a reading from it, and it's got like even more future Cosmere stuff in it. I haven't read it or watched it. I don't really like reading preview chapters. I really just like to read the whole book when I have my hands on it. So, but it's really good. It's got a really simple, protagonist, but not in a bad way. He's really, really fun to follow. The world is really, really cool. And again, the ending little like climax is fun. For a short story, what did I just grab? That is not what I meant to grab. Oh boy, what did I do? Oh no. What did I do, guys? I didn't see. I think it was like that. I don't know. I think I put this above Oathbringer now that I remember. Sorry about that. I think it's good. I don't think it belongs. I meant to move this. I actually don't think it's better than these books. I'll put it above Ally of Law. I think it fits more there. I think I like Dawn's Shard and Secret History a lot more now that I think about it. Now, as for Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell, wait, no, I'm so wrong. I just said Threnody. All the Cosmere buffs are yelling at me in the comics because I said this is in the Threnody system. My brain got confused. This is in the First of the Sun is the planet, and the system, I don't remember what it's called, but this is in Threnody. Sorry, Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell. I'm sorry. It doesn't really matter to most of you. You probably like just get on with the rankings and end this long video. You're on the last one. So, yeah, this is a self-contained, completely unique world. Really, really interesting. Man, I can't put this above here. Well of Ascension, can I? Yes, I can. I did. It's really interesting. It's really good. The magic, or like, it's not. Is it a magic system? I guess they're kind of cognitive shadows, and there's a whole, hence the name Shadow. It's really interesting. It's really gripping. It's almost like the closest Brandon's ever written to a horror novella or horror novel. It's really, really entertaining, and got a really unique world. Again, these worlds like First of the Sun, which has the character whose name is Six of the Dusk. But yeah, the planet is First of the Sun. I can't think of the name of the system. Taldane is White Sand. How do I know that? And I haven't even read White Sand. This is Threnody. It has, the planet is First of the Sun, and it's like I don't know. I can't think of the name of the whole system. I'm sorry. Someone will tell me in the comments if they watch this video. But anyways, back to Shadows for Silence. It's really good. It's again, all these worlds like First of the Sun and Threnody. Like, I want to see so much more of them. Again, more Cell, more Elantris. Like, I want to see more of these kind of one-off. Again, Nalthis even, through Warbreaker got a full novel, but we really haven't had much outside of Roshar and Scadrial, it feels like, and I just want so much more. And nothing makes me. I don't want any. Threnody is like one of those ones that really has no outside relevance. I don't think. I would be surprised if it appears in the long-term Cosmere kind of grand overarching arc. But I would love more short stories, more even just a separate novel taking place in Threnody. It's excellent, and I really don't. I don't think it's gotten like the love it deserves. This wonderfully interesting planet. I really like Threnody, but other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Again, I hope to read White Sand at some point, but yeah, that's it. I thank you guys for watching. And if you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, comment for ideas. I have some ideas of videos I've wanted to make for a while. I actually tried to make a Sporkle video, which again, another easy, I don't have to edit video, just a fun game quiz, trivia quiz site, and it was terrible. The quality, like it was buffering like 15 seconds at a time. It was unwatchable. I want to try and go back and do some of that. I might even record that right after this video if I'm feeling it and if I can get it to work and record properly on OBS. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Again, if you have any ideas or editing tips, I don't even have an editing software downloaded on my laptop. I'm really a pretty poor YouTuber. Again, I'm not even really a YouTuber. I'm just a guy, as Northern Lion likes to say. Most of my audience does not cross over with his. But I'm just a guy and I just make videos. So yeah, subscribe to the guy if you would like to. Thanks. Bye.